Nobody in the crowded restaurant noticed the woman sitting alone at table 17. Nobody noticed how tightly she held her glass. Nobody noticed that she hadn't taken a single bite of food. Nobody noticed the way her eyes kept moving toward the men sitting across from her. But one stranger did. His name was Daniel. He was sitting near the window, waiting for a friend who was already 20 minutes late when he saw the woman suddenly place her hand beneath the table. She looked directly at him. For just 2 seconds, she made a strange gesture with her fingers. Then she lowered her hand. Daniel almost ignored it. But something about her eyes made him stop. She wasn't asking for attention. She was begging for help without saying a word. Daniel looked toward the men sitting across from her. The man was smiling. But the smile didn't reach his eyes. Then the woman signaled again. This time Daniel understood. She was terrified. He stood up. He had no idea who she was. He didn't know the men beside her. And he certainly didn't know that walking across that restaurant would place his own life in danger. But he walked toward her anyway. "Excuse me," Daniel said casually. The woman looked at him. The men beside her frowned. "Can I help you?" Daniel smiled. "I'm sorry. I think we know each other." The woman's eyes widened. The stranger leaned forward. "You know her?" Daniel looked directly at the woman. And she whispered the words that would change everything. "Please don't leave me alone with him." What Daniel discovered over the next few hours would reveal a hidden identity, a family secret, and a truth that everyone, including the police, had misunderstood. And by the time the night was over, Daniel would realize that sometimes courage doesn't begin with knowing what to do. Sometimes it begins with simply noticing that someone needs help. Daniel Brooks had always believed that most people were good. He wasn't naive. He knew there were cruel people in the world. He had experienced enough disappointment to understand that. But he also believed that if someone genuinely needed help, another person should at least try to help. That belief came from his mother. She had raised him alone after his father disappeared when Daniel was 6. Whenever Daniel complained about something being unfair, his mother would tell him the same thing. "You don't have to fix the whole world, Daniel." She would smile. "Just don't walk past someone who is hurting if you can help." Daniel never forgot those words. 20 years later, they were still with him. That evening, he sat inside a quiet upscale restaurant overlooking downtown. Rain tapped against the windows. People talked softly around him. Waiters moved between tables. A pianist played somewhere near the entrance. Daniel checked his phone. His friend was late. Again. He sighed and ordered coffee. That's when he noticed table 17. A young woman sat there wearing a dark blue dress. She looked like she belonged in the restaurant. Elegant. Well-dressed. Calm. At least from a distance. But Daniel noticed something strange. She wasn't eating. Her plate was untouched. Her hands were shaking. Across from her sat a man in a gray suit. He appeared relaxed. He was talking. She was listening. Daniel couldn't hear their conversation. But he could see the woman's face. She looked frightened. Daniel looked away. Maybe it wasn't his business. Maybe she was having an argument with her boyfriend. Maybe he was imagining things. Then she looked at him. Their eyes met. She quickly looked down. Daniel continued checking his phone. A minute passed. Then the woman placed her left hand beneath the table. She raised 2 fingers. Closed them. Opened them again. Daniel frowned. He had seen that gesture before. A silent distress signal. His heart began beating faster. He looked at her again. She was staring directly at him. The men beside her suddenly turned. Daniel immediately looked down at his phone. The men said something. The woman nodded. Then she took a sip of water. Daniel watched carefully. She looked toward the restaurant entrance. Then back at him. She repeated the signal. This time Daniel was certain. She needed help. He stood. His first instinct was to call the police. But he didn't know what was happening. If he called without understanding the situation, the men might notice. Daniel walked toward the table. "Excuse me." The men looked up. "Yes." Daniel smiled. "I think I know her." The woman stared at him. Daniel hoped she understood. The men frowned. "Do you?" Daniel looked at the woman. "I'm Daniel." She immediately nodded. "Yes." The men looked suspicious. "What do you know her from?" Daniel paused. He needed an answer. "We worked together." The woman nodded again. The man's eyes narrowed. "I've never heard of you." Daniel smiled. "It's been a while." The men stood. He was taller than Daniel. "What company?" Before Daniel could answer, the woman suddenly grabbed his arm. "Please." Her voice was barely audible. "Take me outside." The man's expression changed. "You're not going anywhere." Daniel looked at him. "Sir, I think she said she wants some air." "She doesn't." The woman's fingers tightened around Daniel's sleeve. Daniel knew now. Whatever was happening, she was genuinely afraid. He looked toward the restaurant staff. A waiter noticed the tension. Daniel made eye contact. Then he subtly shook his head. "Not yet." The men stepped closer. "You need to leave." Daniel remained calm. "I'm just trying to help. You don't know anything about us." Daniel looked at the woman. She whispered, "My name is Emily." Daniel nodded. "Emily." Then she said something even quieter. "I'm not supposed to be here." Daniel's stomach tightened. "What do you mean?" The men suddenly grabbed her wrist. Daniel stepped forward. "Let go." The men stared at him. "Stay out of this." The restaurant became quieter. Several people were watching. The men released Emily. Then he smiled. "You're making a mistake." Daniel didn't respond. He turned to Emily. "Come with me." She stood. They walked toward the entrance. The men didn't follow. Not immediately. Outside, the rain was falling heavily. Emily stopped beneath the awning. She was breathing hard. Daniel turned toward her. "Who was that?" She looked at him. "His name is Marcus." "Your boyfriend?" "No." "Then who?" Emily hesitated. "My fiancé." Daniel was confused. "You're engaged to him?" She nodded. "Then why were you afraid?" Emily looked around. "He isn't who he says he is." Daniel's expression changed. "What does that mean?" "He told me he was a businessman." "And?" "He isn't." "Who is he?" Emily whispered. "He's been using my father's company to move stolen money." Daniel stared at her. "What?" "My father died 6 months ago." She swallowed. "Before he died, he told me something was wrong with the company." I didn't believe him. "What changed?" "I found documents." "What documents?" "Transfers. Fake companies. Offshore accounts." Daniel looked toward the restaurant. "Does Marcus know?" Emily nodded. "He knows I found them." "And that's why you signaled me?" "Yes." Daniel was silent. "You don't even know me." "I know." "Why me?" Emily looked into his eyes. "Because you noticed." Those words stayed with Daniel. Most people had looked at her. Only one had seen her. Daniel took out his phone. "We should call the police." Emily shook her head. "I already did." "What?" "They came this afternoon." "And?" "They said they couldn't do anything without proof." Daniel frowned. "Where are the documents?" Emily reached into her purse. "They're here." She pulled out a small envelope. Daniel looked at it. "Then we need to get somewhere safe." Emily nodded. They started walking toward Daniel's car. Neither noticed the black SUV parked across the street. Inside, Marcus was watching them. He picked up his phone. "She has the documents," a voice answered. "Then don't let her leave." Marcus smiled. "I won't." Daniel drove through the rain while Emily sat silently beside him. Neither spoke for several minutes. Finally, Daniel asked, "Where do you live?" Emily gave him an address. Then she immediately shook her head. "No." "What?" "Don't take me there." "Why?" "He knows where I live." Daniel looked at her through the rearview mirror. "Then where?" "My father's old house." "Is it secure?" "I think so." Daniel nodded. They continued driving. Behind them, the black SUV followed. Emily noticed it first. "Daniel." "What?" "Don't look behind us." Daniel kept his eyes on the road. "Why?" "We're being followed." Daniel's grip tightened around the steering wheel. "How sure are you?" "Very." Daniel changed lanes. The SUV changed lanes too. He turned onto another street. The SUV followed. Emily whispered, "It's him." Daniel immediately called emergency services. He gave their location. Then he kept driving. The rain became heavier. The road was nearly empty. Daniel noticed a police station ahead. He turned toward it. The SUV suddenly accelerated. It moved beside them. Emily ducked. Daniel kept driving. The SUV sped ahead. Then stopped across the road. Daniel slammed on the brakes. The car stopped inches away. Marcus stepped out. He approached their vehicle. Daniel locked the doors. Marcus knocked on the window. "Emily." She started crying. "Open the door." Daniel said nothing. Marcus smiled. "Daniel, you don't understand what you're involved in." Daniel looked at him. "I don't need to." Marcus leaned toward the window. "She stole company documents." Emily shouted. "They're evidence." Marcus laughed. "She doesn't know what she's talking about." Daniel looked at Emily. "Do you have copies?" "Yes." "Where?" "My phone." Daniel nodded. "Send them." Emily opened her phone. Marcus suddenly became aggressive. "Don't." Daniel looked at him. "Why not?" Marcus stepped back. "You're making a very serious mistake." Sirens sounded in the distance. Marcus looked toward the road. His expression changed. He ran back to the SUV. It sped away. The police arrived minutes later. Emily handed over the documents. This time, there was evidence. Bank records. Emails. Contracts. Company transfers. Names. Everything. The investigation began immediately. But there was another surprise. One of the officers recognized the name of Emily's father. He had been investigating financial crimes connected to the company before his death. Emily stared at him. "My father was investigating Marcus." The officer nodded. "Yes." "Why didn't anyone tell me?" "Because the investigation was confidential." Emily's eyes filled with tears. "So my father knew. He suspected something." Daniel stood beside her. Emily looked at him. "He was trying to protect me." The officer nodded. "And he may have left something behind." They returned to Emily's father's house. Inside the study, they searched through old files. After nearly an hour, Emily found a locked drawer. She opened it with an old key. Inside was a letter. Her hands trembled. She read it silently. Then she began crying. Daniel stood nearby. "What does it say?" Emily handed him the letter. Her father's final message was simple. "Emily, if you're reading this, trust the person who helped you when they had nothing to gain." Daniel looked at her. Emily was crying. He knew. Daniel nodded. He knew someone would try to help you. Emily wiped her tears. But how could he know it would be you? Daniel smiled sadly. He didn't. What? He didn't know me. Daniel looked at the letter. He was talking about anyone who would notice. Emily sat down. For the first time that night, she allowed herself to breathe. Marcus was arrested several weeks later. The financial investigation exposed a much larger network. Emily's father's company was eventually cleared. The stolen funds were recovered. But Emily's life had changed in another way. She no longer believed she had to face everything alone. Months later, she opened a foundation in her father's name. Its mission was simple: to help people who were afraid to speak. To teach employees how to recognize abuse. To support victims who felt invisible. And every year, on the anniversary of her father's death, Emily visited the same restaurant. Table 17. Daniel would sit across from her. Sometimes they talked. Sometimes they laughed. And sometimes they simply remembered the night that changed both their lives. One evening, Emily looked at him and asked, "Why did you come over?" Daniel smiled. "Because you signaled." That was all. No. What else? I saw your eyes. Emily smiled. Everyone else saw me. Daniel nodded. But I noticed you. She looked down. That saved my life. Daniel shook his head. You saved yourself. How? You had the courage to ask for help. Emily smiled. And you had the courage to notice. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Daniel remembered his mother's words. You don't have to fix the whole world. Just don't walk past someone who is hurting if you can help. He finally understood what she meant. Sometimes helping someone doesn't require extraordinary strength. It doesn't require wealth. It doesn't require power. Sometimes it requires only attention. One person noticing. One person asking, "Are you okay?" One person refusing to look away. Because behind a quiet smile may be someone screaming for help. Behind a normal-looking conversation may be someone desperately searching for a way out. And sometimes, the difference between being alone and being saved is simply this. Someone noticed. That night, Daniel had no idea who Emily was. He didn't know her family. He didn't know her story. He didn't know what danger surrounded her. He only knew that her eyes were asking for help. And he chose not to ignore them. That choice changed her life. It changed his life too. And it left them both with a lesson they would never forget. You don't have to be a hero to make a difference. Sometimes, all you have to do is pay attention. Because the person sitting quietly across the room may not need someone powerful. They may simply need someone who notices.